Okay, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, some pretty interesting news about a company I think many of you know, GameStop.
That's right. We're digging into some source material that lays out a really significant financial move they made recently.
Yeah, the main event here is GameStop announcing a big investment in Bitcoin.
And big is the word. The source we have pins it at $500 million, a $500 million purchase of Bitcoin.
Wow, $500 million. Now, the source does point out, this isn't totally out of the blue in the corporate world.
No, definitely not.
GameStop was kind of following a path others have taken, adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. MicroStrategy gets mentioned specifically.
Exactly. We've seen companies diversifying their treasury assets with Bitcoin for a few years now. So the move itself, it has precedent.
And this is where it gets, well, really interesting, according to the source material, the market reaction. Despite that precedent, the reaction to GameStop's announcement was sharply negative.
Very sharp. The material says GameStop shares actually fell quite a bit right after the news broke.
Okay, so why? Why such a different reaction compared to, say, MicroStrategy or others? The source seems to suggest it boils down to investors questioning the strategic value.
Right. The strategic value for GameStop specifically.
That seems to be the key distinction.
Yeah, this is where we need to really unpack it. It wasn't just about holding Bitcoin. It seems the market was looking very closely at how this $500 million investment fits or maybe doesn't fit into GameStop's, unique situation, their overall strategy.
Right, because strategic value, in a business sense, that usually means, like, how does this decision help the company reach its main goals?
Exactly. Does it help grow the core business, improve profits, secure the future, things like that?
And for GameStop,
Mm.
well, the source implies they're still very much trying to figure out their future, right? Evolving beyond just brick-and-mortar retail.
Very much so. A company in transition. So investors seem to be asking, okay, does taking $500 million, a lot of money, and putting it into something volatile like Bitcoin actually help that transformation?
Or, I guess, does it potentially distract from it? That seems to be the underlying question based on the reaction described.
It raises that question of capital allocation. How a company decides to use its money.
Could that money have been used elsewhere? Maybe for things more directly tied to their turnaround.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, boosting their e-commerce or developing new game-related services.
That seems to be the core of the investor skepticism highlighted in the source. It's about opportunity cost. What else could they have done with that capital?
Yeah.
Maybe for a company like MicroStrategy, investors see holding Bitcoin differently. Perhaps it's viewed as part of their strategy, or maybe it attracts a different kind of investor. But for GameStop, given where they are,
Given their specific context.
right, investors apparently saw this move as deploying a huge chunk of capital in a way that didn't clearly push forward what they see as the necessary core business strategy.
And that perceived lack of clear strategic alignment, according to the source's take on investor thinking, is what triggered the sell-off.
It really highlights how, for companies going through big changes, every major financial decision gets put under a microscope.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main points here. GameStop invests a hefty $500 million in Bitcoin.
Following a path others have taken.
Right, like MicroStrategy. But crucially, GameStop's stock drops sharply. And the reason, highlighted by the source, seems to be investors doubting the strategic fit of this move for this company right now.
Yeah, the judgment wasn't really about Bitcoin itself, per se. It was about its relevance to GameStop's specific challenges and where investors think their capital should be going.
So thinking about this reaction, what does it tell you, our listener, about how the market weighs these big decisions, especially when it involves volatile assets or companies already under the spotlight?
It shows that context is king, right? Even if an action has precedent, the market asks, does it make sense here? For this company's specific strategic needs, this questioning reveals a lot about perceived priorities.
Which leaves us with a final thought to Kwawan. Given this negative reaction and the focus on strategic value that the source highlighted, what kinds of moves or investments by GameStop might investors actually see as strategically valuable going forward? What would signal to them that capital is being used effectively